Hey everyone, and welcome to a brand new video. This video, I'm not going to make this too long, by the way. This video, we're going to be talking about the 2D engine. I made that video about 6 months ago. If you want to check it out, you can. But let's just run the program, shall we? So, I'll run the program real quick, and as you can see, we have some basic physics and this gravity collision stuff. And you can move this player. This is not a physics body, by the way. And you can change the position of the camera as well. You can, change the color if you want to. If I show you the result of the previous video, by the way, you might tell that's quite some progress. And it is. Now, I did not work on the engine for about 3-4 months. Mainly because of school. Again, I don't have much time on this engine. I can't work on this every day. So, let's just talk about what's new. As I've told you before, we have a new 2D renderer. I think I did not mention that, but we have a new 2D renderer, and it supports creation of quads as well as triangles, which is quite cool. And you can actually create the shapes with width and height, and then you can render them with several options. You can give them positions, any positions you want, any color you want. Now, I'm not going to go too detailed into this. Let's just go into the header file first of all so that you can see what's going on. So, in the header file, you can see that we have this freeze quad, which is basically a class for the quad, and we have the freeze triangle, which is a wrapper for this triangle. Both of them have single struct, which takes care of all the data initialization. So this struct is responsible for the initialization of all the data required for the rendering of these shapes. So for example, if you want to create a new quad, then obviously you need to create these new data. This will be initialized every single time you create a new quad. And the same goes for triangle. Now the main reason we do this is because if I just run the program real quick, you can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 quads, and all of those quads have different data. And obviously if you don't have this struct, it's not required. You can make this in another way, but I came up with this. It works, so it's not a big deal. But every single time you want to create a new quad with different data, of course you do need different vertex buffer, different element buffer, and all of that stuff. So yeah, that's the 2D renderer. If I go into the physics body, before we go into physics, by the way, we'll talk about a couple of things, and those are engine specific shaders. So I did not, it's not necessary that you have engine specific shaders, but the main use of this is that you don't have to write your own shader every single time you create a new quad. And that is absolutely necessary because if I create, for example, if I go into the player.cpp and I want to create an enemy, for example, then obviously I need a shader. But I don't want to create a shader for every single entity. That's a mess. So obviously what you do is we use these shaders. You can see that we have some uniforms, and these are required because we send the data from the renderer 2D into these shaders. So yeah, these are dynamic, and the parameters do apply, so it's not a big deal. And the other thing that's changed is the entry point of the engine. If you go into the source, you can see that we have entry point.cpp. This is where our engine gets initial, like our main function is. Before that, when I first started this engine, this main function was in the sandbox.cpp, and we didn't have the sandbox.h before, but now we have sandbox.cpp and sandbox.h. This is much better, and let me explain why. Because before, if I just run the program real quick, and I'll show you the log over here. But what happened is that the entity gets initialized first, and obviously all of this stuff is initialized first. The engine is initialized second, and then the other stuff. Now, this is something that you don't want to happen, mainly because Of course, you don't want to initialize your player before the engine is initialized. That's something that doesn't make sense at all. Obviously, if you want to create a quad or anything, the engine must be initialized. Otherwise, you would have weird behavior going on. So that's something that's changed. And yeah, that's pretty much it. So let's get into physics real quick. I mean, I don't have much anyways, but so you can see that the physics API is quite bare, not much. We have three functions. One is to create a dynamic physics body and a static one. And then we have a function to render that physics body. And if you go into the header file, you can see it's basic. All you do is you take the same code, paste it once again, and then you reduce the parameters. But the thing that I want to do is have a list to keep track of the physics bodies. The main reason is obviously because, first of all, if you think about it, it is much better to have something to keep track of all the bodies. Like, as you can see, we have 1, 2, 3 physics bodies. If you ignore that and ignore this triangle, we have 3 physics bodies. And let's just say I just want to make this yellow body dynamic. I want to change the size. Obviously, I cannot do that. I can only modify the color for now, only the color of this square, because I hard coded it. If we have an some kind of list that keeps track of these physics bodies, then we can select it and then we can edit it over here. It is much better to have something like that instead of having to do it in the code manually. And obviously, if that's the case, if we are done with the physics API, then we can start working on the entity system. Now, we do have a problem, and that is if I go into the player.cpp, you can see that I can only create entities only once using the same object. For example, if I want to create a new entity, then I cannot do that because that wouldn't work. And that's a big problem, because if I want to create hundreds of bodies using the same object, I cannot create 100 different instances of the same class. So I need to fix that. Yeah, that's pretty much it in this video. So yeah, subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it, and comment down below for the features that you want to see. And if you want to support the project, you can actually go into my GitHub page, and it only works on Linux for now. If you want to get it working on Windows, it doesn't work for some reason. And these are the instructions, as you can see over here, some key bindings if you want to just play with the sandbox. So yeah, I will see you in the next one.